Analog horror is something that is vastly used online. They're shown to us mainly on YouTube. Rather, they would be a shitty PowerPoint presentation, or they would be something artistic in a unique way. When this type of art is unique, it's what helps the analog horror be more iconic. This type of genre is usually what happens when you combine art with story. And the main reason why I say that is because the visual imagery keeps you hooked and wonder what is going on in the background. It keeps you in curiosity of what the lore is, thus captivating you to the art that can either complete the list of questions you have or leave you with more of them. Dreams of Insomniac is a prime example of this. Just recently got second well, d- well, I got volume 1. It just got another volume, we'll just say that. This video is mainly going over the first volume. If you want to see me analyze volume 0, then that will be the link in the description. Without further ado, let's get started. We begin with a tape with somebody named Alex Williams talking about his experiences at the job with the Lankman Foundation. Before he got the job when it was founded, he was under witness protection for years. There was not even a single day without him being watched. This was due to the information he had being too valuable from the previous volume. Then people in suits showed up to Alex. They recommended him the job at the new facility, and the purpose was to help Veldigan victims, but even that felt vague to him. On the other hand, he didn't really have a choice but to take the job. Then we cut to a tape where we get a cartoon version of Herbert Lankman who tells us about the Foundation. This scene tells us that this place used to be an asylum until it rebranded into a treatment center for those who fell victim to the Veldigan. Lankman even donated to the Eastridge County Police Force to protect everyone. It ends with a phone number for any questions, but as soon as the number appears, we get an archived recording of a call of an incident that happened at another house, then the text that says that all other calls need to be purged. Yeah, no, Herbert so paid the police department off. Even more evidence is that a woman described the Lankman employees to the cops and ended up hanging up, and then they broke in the house. We cut back to Alex explaining his experience on the first day of the job, as well as the others that got stacked with training tapes and rules that seemed a little bit on the nose. For one of these rules specifically, they had to wear goggles to avoid any hallucinative environments. Even so, patients would face symptoms from the Veldigan and were afraid of the Lankman employees. Despite this, everyone treated it like it was normal. We cut to a training tape where we get the precautions of the hallucination environment. It mentions that it helps with visual environments, but not for audio, so you'll still hear things. But this does make you question, why are there hallucinations in the first place? The tape mentions about not interacting with the caretakers before Alex explains how mysterious they are, because of how they take patients to other rooms that he never experienced. However, he decided to mind his own business. A new patient came in. This was a special case. She screamed when the caretakers were taking her somewhere. Alex tried saving her, but his coworker told him that it wasn't worth it. Alex doesn't agree with what the facility is doing to the patients and decides to expose what's going on to the general public. However, Alex is alone on this. He has to do this by himself. Alex starts by recording an interview with the woman he was trying to save earlier. She mentions a room 66, then Lankman breaks through the door knowing what was going on. The caretakers grabbed the woman out of the room and was never seen again. Then Lankman told Alex to get back to his job. The 66th room puts Alex in wonder. There are only 65 rooms in the facility, how could there be one more? When Alex looked at the pre-recording of the interview, he notices a camera at the corner of the room that he never seemed to notice. When Alex went back to the asylum, he tested something by removing the goggles, and everything was the exact same. Alex was lied to, and so were the employees. The only thing that was even there in the first place were the cameras. Then Alex ends up encountering room 66. He opens the doors only to see human entrails at the bottom of the floor. Then Alex looks up. A huge Beldigan stares at Alex directly, and then Lankman arrives to reveal his face. The effect also shows text, but we'll get into that when we get to the analysis portion of this video. Alex gets told to get back to work again like nothing ever happens, but things only got worse ever since that day. Cars pass by with tinted windows, people following Alex, and people treating him like he never existed. As a final resort in case we're to ever be missing or dead, he decided to record the tape we are currently watching and meet up with somebody to tell him everything. Alex tells the viewer that he left every single tape the Lankman Foundation had. All they had to do is spread the information like wildfire. Everyone needs to know. You might think the video is over, but there's just one more thing to go through, and that's the description of this video. After watching the collection of tapes, you knew what you had to do. Late that night, you left your home, hitching a ride with a taxi, and making your way towards the place you saw in the tapes. You didn't know what to expect when you arrived there. For all you know, it might not even be around anymore. The thought of what you might see there terrified you, but filled a new purpose. You marched towards it regardless. Your driver dropped you off far from your destination, not wanting anything to do with where you told him you were going, and so you walked. For hours you walked along a pathway of dirt and gravel, passing way through a part of the county that felt like a ghost town. It had been so long since you last stepped foot here, yet everything felt so familiar. The moon loomed high overhead when you arrived at your destination. The Lankman's Asylum. The place was now boarded up and abandoned, a husk of its former self. You stood in front of the entrance for what felt like an eternity. You knew what you had to do there, but you didn't have the strength to do it. Eventually, the dread became too much to bear, so you turned away and got ready to walk all the way back. But then, you heard something, a bellowing, calling you from deeper within the forest. You recognized the creature's call, and moved beyond the asylum as you ventured into the forest to meet someone you never thought you'd see again. Before we move on with this section, I had to go to my phone in order to do this and do CapCut Mobile, because CapCut on Chromebook is an absolute pain in the ass. I can't even edit 2 seconds, and they can't even handle a 2-minute video. It's absolutely stupid that CapCut Mobile is absolutely more powerful than Chromebook. It's... oh my god. But putting all that aside, compared to Volume 0, that was a series of tapes that was going on in Eastridge County. Meanwhile, with Volume 1, we get the aftermath of what happened in Volume 0. The effects of which being the Lankman Foundation being created, and people being dragged in forcefully. Without a doubt, the caretakers are feeding to this huge Beldigan known as Winfrey, according to the credits, or if you've seen Postra's mascot video. Alex Williams is a character played by none other than Postra himself, and... I'm sorry, no offense Postra if you're watching this video, but me and a few friends started to play tic-tac-toe with your forehead. It was very funny, and for that, I would prefer to do the act of not apologizing. Jokes aside, Alex is a character that is very interesting. He was the only one who would try to rebel against the Lankman Foundation by finding out their secrets. Meanwhile, with the other employees, they didn't want to do anything to do about it, almost as if they knew what would happen, and they kinda did. And I say kinda because the whole thing was explained in Alex's perspective, so we don't really get a reason as to why. But my guess is that it's because of how the Lankman Foundation is such a powerful company that they paid off the cops. That's what I assume, but they probably have some type of power above them. When Lankman first appears, we do get some wall of text, and it's how to perform a lobotomy. I got that from this video. And I would like to give a quick education lesson of what a lobotomy is because people like to throw this around like it's Pokemon cards. This was a brain surgery that disconnected the frontal lobe of the brain during the 1930s because of what we were limited to back then. This was used for people who had diagnosis like schizophrenia and depression. But even so, there were more riskier effects like seizures and death. My source for that will be the link in the description if you want to read more about it yourself. Anyway, what was my point? Oh yeah, Lankman's been lobotomized, let's move on. Now, for the last thing in this video, I actually have a theory in mind. See, what makes Dreams in Insomniac more unique is that you are a character in this series. Hey, sorry for the interruption, but I need to give out a quick little TLDR. I come to notice that the character that you usually have the perspective as is Tommy Merrick, and I never mentioned a single bit of that during this video. So whenever I mention you as the viewer, just think of Tommy Merrick, okay? I'm not re-recording all this, it's late into production at this point. Okay, now back to the video. This usually happens when text starts speaking in second person, meaning it's referring to you, the viewer. The viewer is mentioned at the beginning of Volume 0 where they're watching the tapes, and technically at the end of Volume 1 because the events transpire in the description. I want everyone to watch this specific clip of Volume 1.
Of that entire asylum, trying to find anything out of place. And eventually, I found it. I stood in front of that door for what felt like an eternity. A part of me wanted to know what was in there so badly, but another part of me just didn't want to see it. I was terrified, but I felt like I didn't have a choice.
Now let's read a part of the video description. The moon loomed high overhead when you finally arrived at your destination, the Lankman's asylum. You stood in front of the entrance to it felt like an eternity. Both of these characters stand in front of a door only for something disastrous to happen next. At least that's what we could assume for the viewer. The description also continues on to say this. Then you heard something, a bellowing. Calling you from deeper within the forest, you recognized the creature's call. Creature, huh? That's definitely interesting. Not someone we supposedly know or know of, but a creature. And this word, by definition, is describing an animal or something distinct from a human being. But that's just what I think. My theory could most likely be debunked by the time Volume 2 releases if that happens. I like the type of writing that can answer questions and at the same time leave more other questions than having us ask the same questions over and over again. This is what I believe helps a horror genre be more entertaining. Volume 1 is a prime example of this. In another tape called In Loving Memory, we have a scene where Lankman's voice can be heard. At the same time, we didn't really know who this was. When we get to Volume 1, we get that answer when you connect the dots. Kenneth Kruger was put in the Lankman Foundation by, well, Lankman to be experimented with. Since we can simply figure this out, it leaves us with other questions like why is Lankman doing this in the first place, and what are his true intentions. It keeps you watching and being invested into truly what is going on, and thus you have a hook. Do keep in mind, this is just one of the examples that I just made, because there are certainly others. And that is why I think this volume is a huge 10 out of 10 in my book. This is a very good series, and I suggest going to Postra's channel to see more Dreams in Insomniac to see for yourself. I'm OP Silver, signing off.